So, this episode specifically feels incredibly personal because it is actually something that I'm currently going through. And I'm usually pretty straightforward with you guys as far as like things that are actually happening in my life. I was given some advice by a female leader a couple years ago that really stuck with me, and it was you should never like teach or preach on something you're currently working through because it creates a really weird boundary for people in your audience. And I heard that, I received it, I kind of processed through it, and I agree with it to some extent, especially if you're, a pastor and you're constantly talking to the same group of people. It can be really strange to address something that you're currently going through and then like also trying to coach them through. I hear that, like I get it, I get like a healthy boundary when it comes to your congregation or your audience, and maybe not having to like know every single detail. But at the same time, I think there's like a tension that goes with that where it's really healthy and helpful for there to be an authenticity of like, hey, like this is actually happening right here in the moment and it's what I'm going through. So I was kind of dealing with this tension as I was prepping for this episode because this is like honestly something I'm really struggling with, but I wanted to kind of process with you guys and kind of go over it all together. So here we are. And the theme of today's episode is community. And community is so interesting because I feel like I've never really felt necessarily like I've had like, oh my gosh, like this is community. But then looking back on seasons of my life, I'm always like, oh my gosh, how did I not see like how good that was and how like deeply rich that time was? But I never see it in the moment. And I don't know why. I don't know what it is about separation for me that makes me go, oh, like that was such a good friend, or oh, like that was actually real friendship. But in the moment, I seem to still be craving it. And so that's just like honestly kind of where I have been. And this new season of moving somewhere completely new has been really strange for that too, because I spent 5 years in Fort Worth and loved it so much. It was so amazing. But my actual time there, when I was sitting in Fort Worth, I like spent a lot of the time also thinking that I didn't have friends. And so what's strange is I'm trying to do better at that now. I'm trying to, while I'm here, being like, okay, you know what? No, I actually do have community, even if it's not what I had envisioned for myself or what I thought God was going to lead me to. So today we're going to be talking about that. We're going to be talking about healthy community. We're going to be talking about how what it actually can look like and that it doesn't always look the same everywhere you go, how to maybe cultivate community as an adult, and then also just kind of touching on like scripture that goes along with this because we were created to dwell together. In Ecclesiastes 4:9-10, it literally says two are better than one because they have a better return on their labor. And not that all of life is laborious, but I mean, a good chunk of it is. And it's just the truth of the matter is when we work on things together, and this goes for like whether literally any part of my life, it's always easier, better when multiple people are working on it. I literally think about like working out, going to the gym, being consistent is so much easier when you have a partner, an accountability partner. When you're going through recovery, like you always get an accountability partner. And so just kind of the idea of how two are better. And what's interesting about this though is the transition from childhood friendships or younger friendships to adult, because when you're younger, your friendships are based on convenience, right? Like all of your friendships are going to come from a place of like, hey, this is the person that lives on my street, or hey, this is the person I go to school with, or play a certain sport with, or in theater with, whatever, okay? But adulthood requires like way more intentionality, no longer. And even in college, you have this level of like who's in your dorm and who's in your class, like all of that. And then all of a sudden you're thrust out into the world and you're expected to create these friendships kind of out of nothing, like thin air, it feels like. And this has been insane over the last couple of years for me to figure out, because I also work from home. So really, I don't have to see anyone besides my husband on a regular basis. That is the only person in my life that I am seeing regularly if I don't put effort in. And that's like a weird place to be because it also feels very limiting. And I'm no longer surrounded by all of these friends, whether they're surface level or deep or whatever. And so I had to learn that, first of all, is that community isn't necessarily about quantity, because I always thought kind of like, oh my gosh, it takes a village. Like I need all of these people surrounding me and I need to be in these massive settings. That's not true. It's really about the quality and the depth of those relationships. And how do you get to that level of vulnerability and honesty with another person? Because not everyone is meant to be like a safe person for you to talk about every single thing with. And that is another thing that's taken me a stupid long time to learn. I should not have the same depth of a relationship with every single person, because some people are going to carry my burdens with me in a really healthy, good way. Some people are going to carry in a negative way. Like, it's going to either weigh them down way too much, or they're going to handle it in a way that's not healthy for me to handle with them. And so, kind of just like processing through, it does not mean every single person you should stay shallow with, but it does mean we need to just guard who we're going to jump in with. And I think there's something very interesting about the idea of like people who trauma dump right away when you meet them. And I think I probably used to do this. And I can't remember like a specific setting, but I used to think in the name of authenticity, I would just share whatever with whoever instantly and think, oh, this is how I become good friends with them, is they have to know all my deepest, darkest secrets. And there's not like one specific like massive backstabbing story that like just really wrecked me or anything like that, but just the long suffering of friendships, usually it has to be built upon. And so something that I've talked a lot about with Matt is how I have very high expectations in friendships. Very high expectations. I don't enter a friendship lightly, which sounds so stupid, but I really do. I have this idea that we are going to be equally yoked and we're going to be besties and we're going to have healthy boundaries that absolutely match all the time, and it's going to be so good. And I'm not really giving space for the other person to be themselves. I just kind of put an expectation on what I assume they should act like in our friendship, and then when they don't act that way, I am disappointed in them, which isn't fair. That's not a fair attitude for me to hold. And he's called me out on this multiple times where he's like, hey, like, that's not healthy on you to have this expectation of them. And so just kind of learning roles and boundaries and what that looks like. And it's messy. Okay, here's the thing. This whole process is so freaking messy. It's meant to be messy. It's meant to be crazy. And I have kind of been thinking about the idea that I am 100% the villain in like other people's stories. Some people look back and in high school, they are like, when they reflect on their high school experience, it is not a positive one because of something I've done. And I hate that. I hate the fact that there are people in this world that I have hurt, I have 100% not shown up for in the right way, I've let down, all of those things. And it's really hard for me to go through that. But then at the same time, the grace that I have to extend for myself in these situations, I have to then also give to other people when they aren't the friend that I think they should be. Because it's, yeah, you know what? Maybe they weren't at their best when we were friends, but that's not on them and for forever to carry that weight for. So anyways, I feel like I just kind of spiraled there and gave you like an entire monologue on what I've been thinking through. But anyways, what is an actual healthy friendship? I'm going to hit you with some scripture, some thoughts. First of all, looking at Proverbs 18:21, it's very clear that healthy friendship speaks life over you and does not lead to comparison. And that can be really hard. 100% been in some friendships where I felt like the entire time either I was comparing myself to them or they were comparing themselves to me. That's really, really a hard place to be in a good, healthy friendship. And it's something that you have to actively work against, is not comparing in friendships, because that leads to jealousy and that's all rooted in pride. So you're constantly speaking life and encouragement. And that is very important. Next, looking at Ephesians 4:15, it talks about how you should be challenged by your godly friends when you drift from the truth, and also challenge others. And this is, let me just call out, for fellow believers, okay? We're not necessarily supposed to hold the entire world to Christian standards if they are not Christians. But if you have a good, solid friend who is a Christian and they start to drift off somewhere, it is on us as friends, as brothers and sisters, to call them out and be like, hey, like, where are we going with this? What about this? And kind of do that in a loving way, but That is a really hard concept. This idea of confrontation. I think we've lost confrontation in friendship because the moment there's slightly confrontation, it's, oh, well, I'm not going to give my energy to that. I'm going to pull away from this. I don't need to surround myself with these people. And it's really easy to pull away. And there's so many times I can think back, oh my gosh, that are just like sickening now that I'm older, where there has been confrontation in my friendships and I've handled it disgustingly. Like, so bad. And I literally like get sick to my stomach when I think about these times. But also, I'm kind of grateful in a way because I've realized, okay, confrontation does not need to be a negative in a friendship. It can actually bring you so much closer if done properly, or at least, even if it's not started properly, handled properly after the fact, okay? So that's really important. It's really important that they just celebrate and encourage the same way you celebrate and encourage. And that, for me, I feel like can be a really crucial part because I am a words of affirmation person. Like, I crave that. And so in my friendships, I desire words of affirmation from people. And sometimes when I feel like I don't get that, I think that they are judging me. I think that they don't like me because they're not praising me. And that's like not necessarily great. And so where I've kind of called myself out in it is to be that friend and to constantly be encouraging them and lifting them up instead of waiting for them to do that for me. But that is a sign of a healthy friendship. Communicating clearly, forgiving quickly, and then just like this level of praying for you and not gossiping about you. So crucial in a friendship, okay? And you've got to show up in these ways too. If you're constantly talking behind your friend's back, it is not great. And this is something I have always, just like as a girl, had to work through because whoever you're talking about is going to hurt, but whoever you're talking to, it's going to strengthen that relationship. There's something really weird about gossip. There's actually this like study that if you are gossiping to another person, your relationship with that person is strengthened because you have like this common enemy that you're kind of like festering over. Really, really interesting study, but it's also just not the best foundation for a friendship. If all you do is gossip together when you are in a group and all you do is talk trash, that is not great. That is not a healthy friendship. That is not where you want, because how soon until you guys are going to do that to each other? You know what I'm saying? It's just not good. And it's just something that I've had to work through because I think the quick gratification of gossip in a friendship is really intriguing. And it's always like, ooh, I could be really good friends if we talk about someone else because we're going to feel close. But that is not the foundation you want to build on at all. Okay? At all. So all of this to say, it's like an age old kind of, I don't know if this is like a saying or just like a thought or a proverb or whatever, but you need to like show up as the friend that you want. So kind of just processing through all of these things that scripture says about friendship and who you want as a friend, and then trying to be that friend is super important. So, like I said, we are meant to dwell together as friends. And God is clear about that in all of scripture, especially in Psalm 133:1. And so what does that look like to build from scratch? Which I told you, this is where I'm at right now. This is where I'm at. I'm building from scratch. I have just been trying to process through this and really think, what does it look like for me to create this community and to kind of go from here in a place that's so new? And here's what I've kind of gotten, okay? A level of showing up. I think we have lost the art of making ourselves uncomfortable, or more than that, of putting ourselves out to show up for other people. The moment I don't want to do something, I am being told, well, then don't do it. The moment I don't want to go to dinner to celebrate a friend or go out and commit to the commitment that I have already made, I am told I should cancel. I'm told I should back out of that commitment. When in reality, we have to show up consistently. We have to go to the things that we don't want to go to or be a part of, because that is how friendships are made. So yeah, if you don't want to go to dinner anymore to celebrate someone's birthday, where are we at with putting ourselves out to genuinely show up for other people? There's some of that needed in our world, and I think we're leaning a little too far into not wanting to personally be just annoyed by our schedule, and so we don't do what we've committed to, or we cancel plans or whatever in the name of protecting our peace or whatever you want to call it, okay? That's not great. So showing up even when it's maybe not totally what you want to do in that moment. Next is to initiate first. This is really hard, but I've been trying slowly but surely to invite girls that I meet and say, oh my gosh, like let's go get a coffee. Because there's something about that first coffee of just like getting it out of the way and having those initial conversations of just learning like the basics, like where are you from? What do you do for work? All of those conversations. Once those are out of the way, I feel like it kind of has the layer that you need for a friendship. Okay. So that's really important. That first initial, just we're gonna be friends and taking the initiative to say, hey, let's go get a cup of coffee. It's sometimes hard, but I also feel like the more you do it, the more reps you get in, it gets easier. Next, serving together is so good because it really helps you deepen through like this shared purpose. So like asking someone if they want to go do a actual like serve event with you, and this has been really cool because I've done this in a couple of different settings and it's been so powerful. And I feel like when you're actually doing something, you have more opportunity to like joke with each other. Or if conversation has like a weird lull, like you have a project you're working on together, it's a little less awkward. So I really like that one. And then, yeah, that kind of leads me to my fourth one of don't run when it gets awkward or slow, because in every single relationship there's going to be highs and lows, there's going to be ebbs and flows, there's going to be times where the conversation's flowing naturally, the friendship's coming together so beautifully, but then either because of distance or because you just like literally don't have anything else to talk about, it's going to kind of slow down. So just be consistent in that and still show up in that way even when it gets uncomfortable. So all of that to say, Jesus has modeled friendship. I mean, he had 12 disciples, but then he kind of had this inner three of Peter, James, and John. And it just kind of shows us that we were not intended to walk alone. And he really created us to dwell with others. So this is so sweet. I absolutely love that. And so I just want you to know that my prayer for you right now is that the Lord is bringing the right people into your life and is also going to make you into a person that is safe and steady and kind, because that's so important. And in John 15:12 through 15, Jesus calls us friends. Okay. So in all of this, we have a friend in Jesus. We should try to model ourselves to be a friend like Jesus. And yeah, you don't have to have it all figured out. I don't have it all figured out. We are constantly going through this together. This is not a one and done situation because our circumstances change, the people around us change. And yeah, so we're just going to keep on going with it. But if you're going through something similar, I love you so much. If you're not and you have the best community around you, I am so happy and I love that for you too. But all that to say, hopefully this was an encouragement and I am so grateful for a friend like you today.